You know, when you think about ancient Egypt, your mind probably jumps to a couple of things, right? The massive pyramids of the Old Kingdom, and then later, the golden age of famous pharaohs, like King Tut. But what about the century and a quarter that separated those two incredible eras? Well, in this explainer, we are pulling back the curtain on one of history's most misunderstood chapters, Egypt's first intermediate period.
For the longest time, historians basically wrote this whole era off. They just slapped the label on it, a dark period. The story went that it was pure chaos, a time when temples were looted, statues of kings were torn down, and the grand unity of Egypt just completely fell apart. It was seen as this embarrassing hiccup in an otherwise glorious history.
But what if that's just not the whole picture? What if this dark period wasn't just an ending, but a super messy, dynamic, and honestly fascinating new beginning? Today, we're going to challenge that old idea. We're going to see how this lost century was actually a time of huge transformation that paved the way for Egypt's next golden age.
Okay, so just so we're all on the same page, what are we talking about here? We're looking at the time from about 2181 to 2055 BC. It's that gap between the pyramid builders of the Old Kingdom and the powerful pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom. And the number one thing you need to know about it? The central government collapsed. The pharaoh wasn't calling the shots for the whole country anymore.
Right, so how does a civilization that built the Great Pyramids just crumble? Well, it wasn't one single thing, not by a long shot. It was more like a perfect storm of political problems, social upheaval, and maybe even a climate crisis.
Let's break it down. First up, you've got a major succession crisis. The pharaoh, Pepi II, was on the throne for, get this, over 90 years. He outlived pretty much all his heirs, leaving this giant power vacuum when he finally died. Second, you have the rise of local governors, these guys called nomarchs. They started treating their jobs like family businesses, passing them down from father to son, and they even started raising their own private armies. And to top it all off, there might have been a climate crisis. Some evidence points to severe droughts and low Nile floods, which would have meant widespread famine. Now, historians are still debating that last point, but you put it all together, and you've got a kingdom that's about to break.
So, with the central government in Memphis basically falling apart, you'd think Egypt would just explode into a bunch of tiny warring states, right? Well, not exactly. Instead, two big power centers popped up, splitting the country right down the middle and kicking off what was basically a century-long civil war.
And this slide really lays it all out. Up in the north, or Lower Egypt, you had a line of kings ruling from a city called Heracleopolis. They tried to act like they were the true heirs of the Old Kingdom, but in reality, their power was pretty shaky. Meanwhile, down south, in Upper Egypt, a totally new force was rising in the city of Thebes. This was a scrappy, military-focused power, almost like a collection of warlords working together. And for the next 100 years, these two sides would be locked in a battle for the very soul of Egypt.
And that initial chaos, man, especially up north, it was intense. An ancient historian, Manetho, wrote that one of the first dynasties of this period had 70 kings who ruled for 70 days. Now, is that literally true? Almost definitely not. But it paints a picture, doesn't it? It tells you just how unstable things were. The title of pharaoh had lost its power, and rulers were coming and going like you wouldn't believe.
So what did it feel like to live in this divided Egypt? Well, it was a wild mix. On one hand, you've got these powerful, charismatic warlords running the show, but on the other, you have this surprising explosion of new arts and culture. To really get this era, you have to meet this guy named Ankhtifi. He was a warlord down south who basically acted like his own king. And we know about him because he wrote his autobiography all over his tomb walls. It's this incredible first-hand account where he brags about his military victories and how he took care of his people during a famine. He says, "I gave bread to the hungry." He wasn't loyal to some far-off pharaoh. Nope, his loyalty was to himself and his own little kingdom.
But here's where it gets really cool. While guys like Ankhtifi were busy fighting, something amazing was happening in the southern capital of Thebes. Because they were cut off from the old capital, the artists there were suddenly free. Free from the super strict, centuries-old rules of Old Kingdom art. They just started doing their own thing.
And you can literally see the rebellion in their art. It was expressive, almost a little funky. The figures have these weirdly narrow shoulders and kind of gangly limbs. Their eyes are huge and heavily outlined. Everything's more angular, and the colors are super bright and bold. It was a complete and total break from the calm, perfect, idealized art of the Old Kingdom.
This wasn't just a new style. This was Thebes declaring its independence. It was them forging their own unique identity.
And that new identity? Well, it came with a whole lot of ambition. The warlords of Thebes weren't going to be content just ruling the south. They had their eyes on a much, much bigger prize, reuniting all of Egypt, but this time under their rule.
And the engine behind all this ambition was this one super powerful family. They were all descended from a local Theban governor named Ankhtifi. He was the guy who first pulled the southern provinces together into their own independent state. His kids and grandkids were about to take that ambition and turn it into an all-out war.
And this timeline here, it shows you just how patient and strategic they were. This wasn't a quick grab for power. It started around 2134 BC when the family first created their southern state. Then, a king named Ankhtifi II began the push north, capturing the super important city of Abydos. His successor, Ankhtifi III, pushed the front line even further. Each king chipped away at the northern kingdom, bit by bit, until finally, around 2055 BC, a new king came to the throne in Thebes. His name was Mentuhotep II, and he was the one who was going to finish the job.
All right, this is it, the climax of the whole story. After more than 100 years of fighting and division, the final battle for control of all of Egypt was about to go down.
The year is roughly 2033 BC, and the Theban king, Mentuhotep II, he launches the final campaign. He marches his armies north and completely crushes his rivals, ending their dynasty for good.
And the thing is, Mentuhotep's victory wasn't just about winning a war. This was a huge deal. He reunited Egypt. After 125 years of being split in two, the country was one again. This moment officially ends the first intermediate period and kicks off a brand new era of peace and prosperity.
And this new era they started, that's the Middle Kingdom, which a lot of people call Egypt's classical age. It was a time of absolutely incredible achievements in art and literature. And the big takeaway here is that none of this incredible stuff would have happened without the chaos that came before. That so-called dark period wasn't a failure. It was the fire that forged the next great age of Egypt.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? We tend to look at periods of chaos and collapse as just endings, purely negative. But the story of Egypt's first intermediate period shows us that they can also be times of incredible creativity and renewal, clearing the way for something stronger to grow in their place. What we see as collapse might just be the necessary prelude to a rebirth.
Thanks for watching, and if you liked this video then please hit the like button.